Planning a Canada and New England cruise? These cruises seem simple, but they're packed with surprises. From unpredictable weather to foodie must-tries to the ports you just can't wing on your own. Here are the 15 things that I wish I knew before my first Canada and New England cruise. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now, if you're going on a Canada, New England cruise, you're in luck. It is a beautiful itinerary, and in my opinion, it is highly underrated. So in this video, I'm going to share with you what you can expect. I'm going to share with you specifically for certain cruise ports where it is easy to visit on your own and where you may want to book excursions. I'm going to share with you some of the foods that you'll want to try. And I'm also going to share with you some of the Canada New England cruise etiquette tips and mistakes that you'll want to avoid. Now, before I get started, I wanted to mention two things. Firstly, I am Canadian. I don't know if everybody knows that. So I'm going to share with you some insider tips. And secondly, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Number one, the vibe on a Canada New England cruise. Now, if you've done Caribbean cruises before or Alaska cruises before, I would say the vibe on a Canada New England cruise is a little bit closer to that Alaska cruise. It definitely doesn't have the party vibe that you'll often have with a Bahamas or a Caribbean itinerary, but it doesn't mean it's not a lot of fun. But expect casual, expect to be able to see the scenery, and expect the friendly people in the cruise ports to be a highlight. Canada New England cruises are not all the same. Now, I think that this is a little bit of a misconception, but there are so many different ports of call in this region. So not only is the cruise line or the cruise ship, can that be different, but the itinerary as well. Now, some of the common ones, and ones I think that people often start with, are 7-day round trips that leave from New York or New Jersey or from Boston. But you can also do itineraries that start in Boston and end in Quebec City, which is great because you can actually plan some activities and the land stay in both Boston and Quebec City. Now, there are also some Canada New England cruises that leave from Montreal and end in Boston, or vice versa, or even that visit Montreal, but it's actually less common. And the reason is because the ships actually have to be on the smaller side to be able to fit under the bridge. Canada New England cruises are different lengths. And while it's very common to have a 7-day Canada New England cruise, you can do longer itineraries as well. In fact, we did a Canada New England cruise. I think it was about 3 years ago. We did this on Norwegian Joy, and it was a beautiful 10-day itinerary that brought us to 6 different ports. When is the best time to go on a Canada New England cruise, and what will the weather be like? These are actually 2 questions that I get often. So firstly, when it comes to the best time of the year to sail, it will depend a little bit, on you and what you prefer. Now, Canada New England cruises are usually happening during the summer months, so June, July, August, and they're going to go right into the fall, like September, October, and even sometimes into early November. And that's the most common time. Now, if you really want to see fall foliage, you'll want to go towards the end of September or early October, or even sometimes mid-October. And one thing I can tell you is the weather in this region is unpredictable, a little bit like Alaska is unpredictable. So one year it could be that fall foliage happens, in late September, and another year it can happen in mid-October. You just never know. It does really depend on the weather. However, my favorite time is actually during the summer, or even, during late August and early September. Typically, September is a nice weather month where the weather might be, in the high teens Celsius or the low 20s Celsius, or, in the high 60s to the low 70s. So a really nice temperature, and oftentimes you're going to get sunny days. But something to remember when it comes to the weather is because it is unpredictable, you may have rain at any time of year. You may have some damp weather, and even during the month of June, which is usually fairly nice weather. I have a friend who did a 7-day Canada New England cruise, leaving from Boston, coming back to Montreal. And she just got unseasonably cooler weather. And I think she said that it rained 5 out of 7 days. So be prepared. All right, moving on to what to pack and what not to forget. So firstly, you want to make sure that you have a rain jacket and or an umbrella. I would say honestly, bring both. You want to have, some sweatshirts with you because it can be cool in the morning time and warm up in the afternoon and then cooler again in the evening. Something like what I'm wearing now is just perfect. Don't forget to pack a comfortable backpack. Now, I'm going to leave a backpack suggestion down in the description of the video. It's a foldable backpack, very comfortable, also water resistant. So it's one that we bring on all of our trips. I swear by it. In addition to that, consider bringing binoculars because when you're on the ship or even in certain cruise ports, you want to look a little bit closer at the marine life or the wildlife, and this is going to be great. Now, when it comes to clothing, you want to make sure that you have comfortable shoes for your cruise ports of call and for your excursions. A lot of times you might have, some uneven pavement or even cobblestones, for instance, like in Quebec City, but you'll also have other ports where you'll have some trails or you'll have a little bit of dirt. So you want to make sure that you have some good, comfortable walking shoes or sneakers. So how do people dress on Canada and New England cruises? Well, this is going to depend a little bit by your cruise line. If you're sailing with Norwegian Cruise Line, typically this cruise line is a little bit more casual. If you're sailing with Princess or Holland America, you're still going to be able to dress casually, especially during the day. But even in the evening time, most of the time the dress code is going to be casual or smart casual. So think about what you might wear to a restaurant. And on those cruise lines, you usually have 2 formal, elegant, or dressy nights for a 7-day cruise. Canadian currency and tipping guidelines. Now, I love to talk about this one. And of course, this is going to apply specifically to the Canadian cities that you are going to be visiting during your Canada, New England cruise. Now, when you're in Canada, the currency is the Canadian dollar. And while you can use the American dollar if you're, from the US, keep in mind that when you give the US dollar, for instance, if you give $10 cash, you're going to get change back in Canadian dollars. And just to let you know, when it comes to Canadian dollars, there is no $1 bill or a $2 bill. It starts at the $5 bill, then you go to the $10 bill. And up until that point, you're going to have a loonie, which is a $1 coin, or a toonie, which is a $2 coin. Now, I will talk about the etiquette and things not to do later on in this video, but for now, let's just stick with what is practical. If you're going into a restaurant, you can definitely pay with your credit card, and that probably is the easiest thing. So you can still get out a little bit of Canadian currency. I still think that it is a good idea to pay in the currency that Canadians use, but they will accept US dollars. Just expect that you may not have the best conversion rate. And when it comes to credit cards, I would say be careful. If you use an American Express, it may not be accepted everywhere, but a Visa or a MasterCard typically is. Canadian dollars. Now, this is a really big tip because I think that not everybody realizes it. But for people that are from the United States, your dollar is going to go really far in Canada right now just because of the exchange rate. So when you see that a meal in a restaurant, for instance, is $20 Canadian, that is only going to be approximately like maybe $13 or so for you and your dollars. So eat locally in cruise ports, buy those souvenirs, and remember that you're probably going to be paying less than what you'd expect in most major tourist cities. Who to tip and how much to tip. Now, the tipping guidelines are very similar in your US destinations on this cruise as well as your Canadian destinations. So typically when you're at a restaurant, the tipping culture is the same. You're going to be adding between 15% at the low end to 20% or higher for the servers as a tip for your bill. Now, when you go on excursions and you have a tour guide and a driver, it's also customary to tip a few dollars per person at the end of your tour. So a little tip before you get off the cruise ship for the day, make sure that you not only have your cruise card and your ID and a credit card, but make sure you have some small bills to tip as well. Tenders versus docking. Now, I think something that surprises a lot of people is that some of the ports of call can be tender ports. And even sometimes if they have a dock, depending on your cruise ship and how many cruise ships are in, you may be tendering. Now, I mentioned this because if you see that you do have a tender port, just want to make sure that you plan for your day, that you go and pick up your tender ticket as soon as it's available. Don't wing it in your cruise ports of call. Now, this is actually a mistake that some people do. They assume that in every cruise port of call, you can just get right off the ship and visit a little town or a city, and that is not always the case. So you really do want to plan for this. Now, you could book an excursion with the cruise line, you could book a private or independent excursion, or in some cases, you may want to explore on your own. Now, I'm going to share with you an overview of some of the more common Canada, New England cruise ports of call, what you might want to do there, and even what we did and recommend in those cruise ports of call. But first, I did want to share with you another couple of tips and mistakes to avoid. Not being prepared for the emotion of the ocean. Now, while it's perfectly possible that you are going to get smooth seas during your cruise, it's also possible when you leave from New York or from Boston, it is possible that you can have, at least for a certain period of time, you can have some rougher seas. So make sure that you do bring whatever remedies you personally like to handle any motion sickness. Personally, I really like to bring Bonine or Bonine, which is an over-the-counter medication that just doesn't make us drowsy, but there are other alternatives as well. Canada, New England etiquette, and even cruise etiquette. So let's start with the cruise etiquette. Be on time. This is actually really important. When your excursion is meeting up on the cruise ship and then leaving, it is important to be on time because that excursion could leave without you. And likewise, when you're in the cruise port, make sure that you're always, arriving on time, that you're at the meetup location on time. Typically, they are going to wait for you, but it can delay everybody else. And it is possible in a worst case scenario that you'll get separated from the group. Avoid calling Canadian currency monopoly money. Yes, Canadian money does look different. And again, I'm Canadian, so I can laugh at that too. But keep in mind, this is a real currency. So, try to keep your comments polite. Avoid political commentary and political jokes. Now, I always think that this is good advice, and I've been recommending this for years when you're on a cruise. But, during the times that we're in now, I think people can actually really get along. But, tensions can be high, and it's just better to not engage in these conversations. The French language in Quebec. Now, when you're visiting Quebec City or Montreal, the official language is French, and it's absolutely fine if you speak English. They are used to tourists. They're going to be very nice to you. They're going to serve you, but it is just something nice to say a simple bonjour when you enter the store or when a waitress or waiter comes to serve you. And by the way, if you want to say thank you, the word is merci. Keep a quiet voice in memorials and museums, and this applies, by the way, in Canada and of course in the United States. So if you do go into a museum, it's nice to keep a quieter voice. If you're at a memorial, for instance, the Titanic memorials that are in Halifax, just keep your voice a little bit lower to be respectful. Respect nature and don't walk where you are not supposed to go. Now, Peggy's Cove in particular in Halifax, there are these just gorgeous flat rocks, but there are rocks that are closer to the sea that you should never walk on. Now, there are signs everywhere, but it really is very dangerous. There have been people over the years that have slipped on the wet rocks and who have been swept out to sea. Canada, New England cruise ports. First, let's start off with the ports that you can most easily see on your own. And then I am going to share with you the cruise ports of call that, in my opinion, you are best off booking an excursion. By the way, I'm also going to share with you the types of food that you may want to try in each destination. And after this, I have a little bit of a bonus, and that is the souvenirs that you may want to buy during your cruise. Quebec City. Quebec City is one of the most picturesque, charming ports. It's going to feel a lot more like Europe than it does North America. Fun fact, it's actually, I think it's one of only 2 walled cities in North America. Now, when you get off the ship, you're going to be in Lower Quebec. You can walk around there. It's very, very nice. But I would suggest heading to the Upper Quebec area. Now there you're going to find Chateau Frontenac. It's still beautiful to see even if you don't stay there. You're going to find the Plains of Abraham. This is a historic battlefield turned beautiful park. And you'll find charming cobblestone streets with unique shops and restaurants. Now just a little tip, if you don't want to walk up, there is a funicular that you can take instead. Now if you have a little bit more time in Quebec City, you may want to go to Chute Montmorency or the Montmorency Falls. That is definitely worth the half-day trip. Foods to eat in Quebec City. The food, no matter what you eat, I think is probably going to be good. But their specialty in Quebec is poutine. This is French fries, gravy, and curd cheese. It is better than it sounds. Really good. Maple anything, as well as croissants and pastries. Bar Harbor, Maine. Bar Harbor is very easy to walk around and to visit on your own. Now you can get off the cruise ship after tendering, by the way. So you'll get off the cruise ship and you can walk just up and down the streets. You can stop in and have a lobster roll or fish and chips somewhere. You can also have some blueberry ice cream. The shops are charming. This is a great little town to do a little bit of shopping or even to walk through a park. Now, if you do want to do a tour, something that I can suggest is heading to Acadia National Park. Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Now, this is actually one of my favorite places in Canada, a beautiful little town. Now, I actually did do an excursion here, so I'll tell you about that in just a moment. But if you want to just walk around this town, I highly suggest that you find a place that you can have fish and chips or lobster. It is really good here, and you're going to find that the prices are very reasonable. In the stores, you're going to find Anne of Green Gables, everything from postcards to dolls to the raspberry cordial to Anne of Green Gables chocolate and more. This is a very walkable small city with a lot of different sights to see. Now I do have a tour that I can suggest, and that's the Anne of Green Gables tour. So if you're a fan, I definitely do suggest it. Now our tour actually stopped at a beach. It was just gorgeous. The sand is actually like a red earth. So it really is something we're seeing. And even the bus ride there, it was so picturesque with the most beautiful green landscape. Now, while you're in Charlottetown, in addition to having lobster or fish and chips, something else that you might want to stop for is Cow's ice cream. And by the way, you're going to find Cow's ice cream in many of the different Canadian ports and cities, but we just happen to have it here. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Now, by the way, I have a video all about Halifax, Nova Scotia, as well as Charlottetown, so I'll leave a playlist at the end of this video with other Canada, New England videos, but Halifax is just amazing. Now, again, this is somewhere you can take an excursion, but if you want to just get off the cruise ship and you want to walk around the boardwalk on your own, you absolutely can do that. Now, within a 10-minute walk, you're going to find shops and different restaurants and just some places to hang out, and you're even going to find the Maritime Museum. Now, personally, I do think that it's well worth a visit to take a tour to Peggy's Cove. Now, sometimes your tour to Peggy's Cove is also going to include the Citadel and the Titanic Cemetery. Now, just to let you know, the excursion that we booked recently was with Shore Excursions Group. Now, this video is not sponsored by Shore Excursions Group, but this is an independent shore excursion company that I have used and can recommend. Now, the nice thing about Shore Excursions Group is the fact that many of the tours are just smaller groups, which I like. And if you do want to book a private tour at a reasonable cost, they have that. Now, I will leave a link to Shore Excursions Group down below in the description of this video in case it can be helpful. And foods to eat in Halifax, Nova Scotia, there are actually quite a few. Lobster, lobster rolls, fish and chips, of course. But the other thing is donair. Now, I am not a fan, but it might be worth trying because a lot of people love it. Now, in addition to this, beaver tails. This is something that you're going to find right on the boardwalk, and Cow's ice cream. Boston, Massachusetts. Now, while you can visit Boston pretty easily on your own, something that you should know is that the port, well, it isn't exactly the area that you want to be. So you'll probably want to take an Uber or a transfer to the Quincy Market area. Now, from the Quincy Market area, what you can do is visit the Freedom Trail, Faneuil Hall, and sorry for my pronunciation of that word. You're going to find street performers in that area. You're going to find shops and restaurants. Now, something that we like to do is spend a couple of hours in that area. And by the way, at Quincy Market, you could find some fabulous clam chowder and lobster rolls, but we like to go in the afternoon over to the north end. So you just cross over the Greenway, and somewhere we like to go is Regina's Pizza, and then we'll pick up some cannoli either at Mike's or Modern Pastry. Now, if you've been to either of these, please let me know what is your favorite place for cannoli down in the comments below. Ports where you are better off booking an excursion. St. John, New Brunswick. Now, St. John, New Brunswick is a great place to visit, but in my opinion, there isn't that much to see and do that is close by to the cruise port. Instead, what you might want to do is see anything related to the Bay of Fundy. Now, when it comes to sights to see, not too far from the cruise ship is the Reversing Falls. There's also the town of St. Martin's. I found that to be quite interesting in terms of being able to see the tides that go higher and lower. Now, with the town of St. Martin, if you can get an excursion that stops at the Sea Caves beach, that is something to see. Even if you don't go into the water, there are little rocks. It really is, it's quite nice. But while you're at the Sea Caves, you'll want to go to the Caves restaurant. The Caves restaurant is known to have the best seafood chowder. It really was that good. And the fish and chips, I don't think anybody talked about it, but it probably was the best fish and chips that we had out of any of the other cruise ports of call. Sydney, Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia. Now, when you get off the cruise ship in Sydney, Nova Scotia, you're going to see this giant fiddle. And I think that they hold the record for the biggest fiddle. But outside of that, there isn't that much that is close by in Sydney. So what you'll probably want to do is take an excursion to see the Cabot Trail or the Fortress of Louisbourg. Now, while we were in Sydney, Nova Scotia, one of the times we went to the Alexander Graham Bell Museum, which was interesting for a couple of hours. And another time we decided to stay close by to the port. It was still a nice walk around the town. We did stop at the Tim Hortons, and there is quite a good restaurant just a few steps away from the port, where incidentally, if you want, you can get some pretty good poutine. Saguenay, Quebec. Now, Saguenay, Quebec is not that common a cruise port on the Canada-New England itineraries. However, if you do see it on an itinerary, it is so worth it. Definitely a gem. Now, as you sail into Saguenay, you're going to be going through the Saguenay fjord, so you definitely want to be out on the top deck. Now, something very unique that you're going to see is the Notre Dame de Saguenay statue. This is a statue of the Virgin Mary that is standing on a cliff about 180 meters or 600 feet above the Saguenay Fjord. Now, this white statue erected in 1881 is striking, so get your camera ready. Now, when your ship docks as passengers are heading into Saguenay, you're going to be treated to probably one of the warmest welcomes that you have ever seen. Now, I do suggest taking an excursion when you are in Saguenay. The excursion that we did included going to a glass blowing factory or workshop. We also went to the cheese factory. Now, this is where you can actually pick up poutine cheese and bring it home. It is fresh, it is delicious. And we also went to an alpaca farm, which was definitely one of my favorites. Now, I do have a little bit of a bonus for anybody whose cruise is starting or ending in Quebec City. As a Montrealer, I will tell you how you can visit Montreal and Quebec City during the same trip. Don't bring back the wrong souvenirs. Now, there are actually great souvenirs to bring home from Canada and New England. Maple syrup, anything. Now, I'm not just talking about real maple syrup that you should bring home, but also maple candies. We actually love them. They are so good, but maple cookies as well. Saltwater taffy, lobster-shaped candies, and chocolate. Any Anne of Green Gables merchandise. Now, you could find this in particular in Prince Edward Island. Nova Scotia tartan items. Cow's Ice Cream t-shirts and other merchandise. Harvard and other Boston University t-shirts and hats. Lululemon. I know that's going to be a funny one, but Lululemon in Canada is in Canadian dollars, but it's actually the same price usually as the US items. So if it's $90 Canadian, it's also $90 US, and therefore buying it in Canadian is going to be cheaper. And a few food items include poutine or curd cheese, Lay's ketchup chips. Now, a little bonus, if your cruise ends in Quebec City and you want to take the opportunity to visit Montreal as well, what you could do is you can actually take the train from Quebec City to Montreal. Now, it's only about a 4-hour train ride. It is very comfortable. Now, something that we did is after our cruise, we disembarked in the morning time in Quebec City, and we brought our luggage over to the train station. And by the way, we booked our train ride for about 6:00 p.m. So we would have the entire day. Now, the train station will actually store your luggage until your train ride, leaving you the freedom to explore Quebec City without your luggage in hand. Then you can take your relaxing train ride to Montreal. I do suggest upgrading your ticket to include a meal, and then you can spend an additional day or two there before flying home to your final destination. Now, I am going to leave a playlist right after this that includes what to pack for your Canada, New England cruise, packing tips, as well as cruise port specific videos. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Please let me know if you are going on a Canada, New England cruise, or if you've ever been, and share your tips as well as any questions that you may have in the comments below. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye for now, and happy cruising.